In this video, we are going to talk about how to graph standard form of a quadratic equation. So first, let's talk about what standard form looks like. Standard form looks like y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. And in our standard form, our c is always the y-intercept of our equation. So if I was looking at these first couple examples, when they're asking for the y-intercept, I know that's always my c value. So 0, negative 12, 0, 10, and 0, negative 4. Now, whether the graph opens up or down is based on whether our a value is positive or a negative number. So if we look at this first example, I have a negative in front of the x squared. That means my graph is going to open down. I have nothing or a positive in front of my x squared, so that means the graph is going to open up. Again, I have a negative in front, so it's going to open down. When we are trying to find the axis of symmetry in a standard form equation, we're going to use this little formula, opposite of b or negative b over 2a, and that's going to help us find that axis of symmetry, which is also the x of our vertex. Keep that in mind. So let's think back to solving quadratics. A, B, C. So A is 1, B is 6, and C is 5. So C is always going to be my y-intercept, so 0, 5. My axis of symmetry, we're going to find it by doing opposite of b over 2a, which would be opposite of 6 over 2 times 1, which is negative 6 divided by 2, or negative 3. Now from this point, keep in mind that this negative 3 is really important. It's going to be the x of my vertex. It's also going to go in the middle of my table. So I'm going to put negative 3 here, negative 3 here. Then I'm going to build my table around that negative 3. So put two numbers that are smaller, so negative 4 and negative 5, and two numbers that are bigger, negative 2, negative 1. Now, to find those y values, I need to plug in each of these x values. So let's say I want to find the vertex first. So everywhere where I see an x, I'm going to plug in a negative 3. I'm going to put negative 4. I'm going to do the same thing for my numbers above. Plug in negative 4. And we can type that in a calculator. We'll get negative 3. Do the same thing with negative 5. And then do the same thing with 2, or negative 2, excuse me. And negative 1. Now, you could always use the table feature on your calculator as well. Notice the symmetry we have in our table. All right, let's plot our key points. So I'm going to plot my vertex at negative 3, negative 4, and I'm going to draw in my axis of symmetry. Then I'm going to plot my remaining points. So negative 5, 0, negative 4, negative 3, negative 2, negative 3, negative 1, 0. Again, our point should have symmetry. And don't forget to finish filling in your vertex. All right, this next question says to write our equation in intercept form. So remember, intercept form is really the same as factored form. So if we're going to factor this expression, we're going to think about what multiplies to 5 and adds to 6, and then write it in our factored form. And so that would be 5 and 1. Now remember, our x-intercepts are the opposite of our factors. So if I have x plus 5, That means my x-intercept is -5, and I have x plus 1, so my x-intercept is -1. All right, let's approach this graph. So again, my a in this case is -1, my b is -4, and my c is 5. So my y-intercept is 0, 5. To find the axis of symmetry, I'm going to do opposite of b over 2a. So opposite of -4 over 2 times -1 is 4 over -2, which is -2. So that'll go in the middle of my table and in the x of my vertex. Now I'm going to build my table with two numbers that are smaller and two numbers that are bigger. Now, again, we could use the table feature on our calculator or in Desmos. I don't have those open right now, so I'm going to plug each of these in by hand. So we're going to plug those in the calculator with all the parentheses. Forgot the negative with that. Don't forget the negative. So I'm just plugging this into the calculator for every single one. Okay, I'm going to get my table of values. I'm going to plot my vertex and draw in my axis of symmetry. So 2, 9 is going to be up here. Draw in my axis of symmetry. And then plot the rest of my points. So -4, 5, -3, 8, -1, 8, 0, 5. Draw my graph. Don't forget to finish your vertex. All right, now, again, we're going to write this in factored form. But I have this negative in front. So the first thing I'm going to do is take out a GCF of -1. So we'll put on a negative in front. Then I'm going to think about what multiplies to -5 and adds to 4. So again, with this -1 in front, I'm going to factor. So plus 5 minus 1 would multiply to -5 and add to 4. And again, my x-intercepts are just always the opposite of my factors. I don't need to worry about that at all. I'm just going to do the opposite of the factors. So -5 and +1. Okay, so again, intercept form, think factored form. So multiplies and adds. So y equals +2 and -1, because that would multiply to -2 and add to +1. My x-intercepts would be -2 and +1. And my y-intercept would be my c value, so 0, -2. This one's kind of like number 2, where I see I have a number in front, so I'm going to take out that GCF. When I do that, I'll have x squared plus 6, oh sorry, not 6x, 3x, we're dividing, minus 10, and we're going to think about what multiplies to -10 and adds to 3. So it'll be +5 and -2, meaning my x-intercepts are -5 and +2, because again, they're always the opposite of my factors. And my y-intercept is going to be at -30, because that is my c value, and my c value is always my y-intercept.